Hi, everybody. I'm back again for our third interview question with Tanya Pearrell from She's Somebody's Daughter. And I just love that name because I think before we begin, I just want to say how it's easy. And I know you touched on this. It's easy for us to ignore what's going on around us and say, that's not my problem. It's not my child. It's not my, it's just not my problem.
Mhm.
But I don't think we can do that
Yeah,
anymore. I mean, as a
yeah.
society, I think, um, I think if you look at it from the perspective of what if that was my daughter?
Mhm,
Wouldn't I want someone else
mhm. Yeah,
to go above and beyond to notice, to do
right,
what they can to help my child?
right, right.
I think when they talk about it takes a village, it takes a village of awareness. And,
Mhm,
you know, Tanya is aware of this, but we're using one of our founding board members and a longtime survivor of human trafficking wrote a few workbooks that we're using. And, um, it talks about how um, easy it is to just turn a blind eye. And we cannot, we have to be aware. And it talks about this is where I wanted to go with this, but the octopus, because the trafficking trade, and it is a trade, they're trading people as if they're a nothing, a piece of something,
mhm,
not a human being. It's like an octopus. They've got tentacles everywhere, and people that you could never even imagine
mhm,
in all levels of society are
mhm.
involved in this
Yes,
because they're making money. That's the biggest thing, money, and they have power, and
right.
it's we have got to be a village. We have got to be stronger. We have got to have more tentacles. We have got to have more eyes on what's going on. And before you go into that, I just want to make one more point because you and I talked about this, that it's great that The Sound of Freedom came out, and it's great that the movie Taken with Liam Neeson forever ago
Mhm,
came out, that people, were sort of hyper vigilant going through airports and here and there thinking, I
mhm,
don't want my child to be grabbed and taken to another country. And yes, while that does happen, most of the trafficking is here in the States, and it's happening in our neighborhoods
mhm.
every single day.
Yeah,
And we're encountering those people every day of our life. We're encountering people not even realizing.
yes,
So, anyway, with all
yeah.
that said, I didn't plan on saying all of that prior to you going, but you
No, that's
take it away and talk about some of the ways, the things that we might not be looking at or thinking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, you've hit on so much of it, and I think, as you and I talked earlier, um, about and statistics vary. It's hard to get good, solid
Yes.
statistics because so much is unreported, but over 90% of those that are trafficked in the US are trafficked by someone they know and trust. So whether that's a family
Mhm,
member or a close friend or a significant other,
mhm,
that's where the majority of trafficking happens. So yes, there are
mhm,
kidnappings, but it doesn't happen as much in the US. What we talk a lot about within our trainings, number one is that sometimes it's hard to know the signs without knowing the story. So people often
mhm,
want to know, well, if I'm out in public, what am I looking for? If I'm at an airport, what am I looking for? And yes, there are things that you can be looking for in that regard, but also it's really hard to know without knowing the story. Um, like I use the example, my daughter and I traveled to Greece the end of last year. And for a while, I was holding her airport or her passport in the airport just because it was easier to keep them together. Well, that could be a
mhm,
sign, but without knowing the story, if somebody just saw me holding her passport, they could think, oh, she's, this girl's being trafficked. So that's what we talk
mhm,
about. And so when we're talking about it, we're encouraging people to look within your sphere of influence, within your family, within your community. If you're working with youth, keeping an eye on those youth that are in your sphere of influence. And we talk a lot about vulnerabilities because there are certain
Mhm.
demographics that are much more vulnerable to trafficking. We know that people of color, undocumented immigrants, those that are of the LGBTQ plus community are often much more vulnerable. And there are a lot of reasons why. But the reality is that we all have vulnerabilities. And so we often use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we look at the very bottom of, you know, your basic physiological needs like food and water and shelter, and you move up this pyramid, and at each one of those levels there are vulnerabilities. And so there's a level of love and belonging. And so you might have a youth who has everything. Her parents have given her a great home, they provide her with all the newest stuff, but she doesn't feel loved. And so there's this individual who picks up on that, whether it's something she posts on social media or something, but they pick up on that and then they exploit
Mhm.
and use those vulnerabilities. And
Mhm.
so we encourage parents, when you are, and adults, any adults with youth, being aware of what your child's doing online. That is such a huge thing, because kids are being trafficked without even leaving their home, without even meeting their trafficker. So know what your kids are doing online, who they're talking to. I love to do internet safety and prevention with youth and parents, because it sparks a lot of conversation.
Mhm.
But know what apps your children are on, who are they talking to, what are they posting online, being aware of video game systems, anywhere where you can connect with strangers over
Mhm.
the internet. And so just being aware, are they spending a lot of time in their rooms on their phone? Are they dressing differently? Are they becoming withdrawn? Are they being much more secretive just with what
Mhm.
they're doing? Are they demonstrating a little bit more hypersexualized behavior, whether that's pictures or the way they're dressing? Are they coming home? Maybe it is a family who doesn't have a ton of money, and next thing you know, your child has nails done and hair done and all
Mhm.
of these things. Um, how are they paying for that? What's that coming from? Having like a second cell phone can sometimes be a sign because they're
Mhm.
receiving calls from someone. So those are things
Mhm.
to watch for and to be aware of.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so much, and it's so in our face, and it
Yes.
wasn't like that when I was growing up.
Right.
It's so much harder for kids in the last 15
Yes.
years or more with the cell phones and the laptops and the all these electronics, the
Mm-hmm.
games, and I
Yeah.
think that there's indoctrination going on
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of these, and indoctrination and grooming going
Grooming.
on
Yes.
with,
Yes.
with a lot. There's so much sexualization
Mm-hmm.
of our children,
Yeah.
and they want to normalize that, you know.
Yeah.
Even in the dance world, I'm a dancer, and I know I taught at a couple of local schools in Pennsylvania, aside from Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, which did not sexualize children. They're always very
Mm-hmm.
modest in their costumes. But I worked at a couple of other schools that it was horrific. I mean, some of these girls would go out on stage and they literally dressed them like prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
They had on go-go boots and hot pants, and I'm talking 9-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
and crop tops, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I don't know why parents aren't saying no to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why they're thinking that this is professional.
Yeah.
It's not professional dance.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. There is professional dance like that, right? We're seeing it at Super Bowl. We're seeing it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the problem. So we're paying lip service to all
Mm-hmm.
of these um, entertainment
Mm-hmm.
uh, industries and allowing our children to watch all this and think, that's what we should aspire to. Well, oh my
Yes.
goodness.
We do some training on cultural influences and what does that look like, just the music that we listen to and the movies we watch, and
Yes, and the music and the movies.
and yes, and those types of things, and the influence that that has on us and how it
Yeah,
affects these things. Yeah.
yeah. And I just watched a movie the other night, and it was seemed cute and it was funny. And my mom were like, "Oh, it's so cute." And then it got to this one point and where It's like a husband and, two divorcees, and they each have children. She has boys, he has girls, and now they're going to date. And she's worried about her son because he had pornography under his bed. And she
Mhm.
found it and was disgusted and ripped it up. Then she felt guilty and thought, I better replace it. So there she is in a store trying to purchase another. I mean, the whole thing was so great,
Mm,
kooky. And the guy comes up and says, "Oh, I know which one that was. Here, you want this one?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Where we are, that is one of those subtle things that everyone's supposed to laugh at and say, oh, how funny,
mhm,
funny. But if you're sitting there watching that with your children,
mhm,
and now you've just let that moment pass, we
mhm.
are we are not condemning it. Where's the word? Why am I not? We're
Well,
saying
we
it's
all
okay.
we're
We're saying
endorsing
it's
it or
okay.
okay,
And
yeah.
we're endorsing it. And the thing is that they're throwing that into almost every movie,
Mhm. And we often talk
and
about
like,
taking advantage of those teachable moments. So, if you are watching
and
a
that's
movie
true too.
like that with your
Yeah,
child, um, stop it.
I wasn't. I
And
mean, my
and
kids are grown,
right,
but
right. But
I'm sitting
for
here
parents
thinking
who
like,
are,
yes, and to stop and
yeah,
say,
stop
yeah,
them.
but I mean to say, but we shouldn't
Mhm.
even, I guess my point is that
We shouldn't need to.
we shouldn't need to. And why are we continuing to patron these
Mhm,
movies and these things?
mhm.
I think that there is finally
Yeah,
a backlash, but
yeah.
in Hollywood. But yeah, anyway, I appreciate that. Well, everybody, we're going to come back again with Tanya, and so grateful to know what you're doing out there, um, and just to have your insight and wisdom, because you've been at it for a while now, um, and we appreciate that. So everybody, we'll be back shortly.